Welcome back to the Live, Learn, and Play podcast, where we talk about the people, places, and programs at Arkansas Children's. As always, we like to start with our mission at Arkansas Children's, which is to champion children by making them better today and healthier tomorrow. On today's episode, we have a special and somewhat emotional story. We're talking with Heather Honaker about her daughter Ellie, who's a patient here at Arkansas Children's. Please rate and review the Live, Learn, and Play podcast. And thanks for listening. Now, here's Heather. On today's edition of the Live, Learn, and Play podcast, we are talking with Heather Honaker, and she is mom to Ellie, who's 14 months old, and Jack, who just turned 3. And we're going to talk specifically about Ellie, who's a patient at Arkansas Children's. But first, Heather, if you could just share a little bit about yourself and your family. I know you a little bit from your blog. I read your blog and some other interview pieces that you've done. But for our listeners who haven't read your blog and don't know you, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Heather. My husband, Ben, and I live in Little Rock with Jack and Ellie, and we're expecting a new little boy at the end of the year. My husband's an attorney here in town, and right now I'm just a busy mom.
Definitely. With a 3-year-old, we were talking about recording before we started recording, how busy a 3-year-old and especially a 14-month-old will keep you. So specifically talking about Ellie, since she was your second pregnancy, you, when you were pregnant with Jack, no complications?
Right, yeah. He was an easy baby.
Okay, so what were your expectations when you were pregnant with Ellie?
Yeah, that's easy. You know, I got pregnant with Jack. Went through the 9 months. He was born. We took him home, and Ben and I learned about him and kept him alive. That's just kind of what we expected, what would happen with Ellie too.
So during your second pregnancy, you started having some problems, which eventually led you to Arkansas Children's, but kind of take us through when you realized something was different and that there was going to be issues.
Yeah, so it was actually Christmas Eve, which is a pretty crazy time of the year. I was about to give Jack a bath that night, and I started having some trouble, and so we went to the ER, and luckily my OBGYN was on call that night, and they hooked me up to a heart monitor and monitored me for a few hours there, and it was really strange. Ben and I heard the monitor for so long, and we kept thinking, we even said to each other, something just doesn't sound quite right about this, and so they had us there for a few hours, and eventually my doctor came in and she said, listen, I know you want to be home for Christmas. And so she went ahead and sent us home with instructions for bed rest.
So you leave the hospital that night. What were you and Ben thinking and feeling? What was your conversation like on the way home?
Neither one of us thought that we were going to have this baby. We just thought that this wasn't going to that this baby wasn't going to make it. We had a miscarriage a few months before, and we just kind of thought that was what was about to happen. It was really heartbreaking because I was further along in the pregnancy. You know, I could feel the baby move, and we knew that she was a girl, and we already kind of had this idea of what life was going to be like with her. It was a pretty stressful time for us. So
in addition to it being stressful, it's also a happy time because Christmas was 2 days away. How did you transition from leaving the hospital with some potentially upsetting news to celebrating Christmas 2 days later?
You know, I didn't tell anybody about what had happened. I had Ben call all of the grandparents and let them know what had happened the night before. I couldn't really talk about it. But we knew that we needed to pull it together for Jack. As much as I just wanted to lay in bed and tuck my head under the covers, I wanted him to have a good Christmas. He was at the age where he knew what Santa Claus was, and he knew about presents and what Christmas morning was supposed to be like. So we just tried to do everything we could to make it as good of an experience for him as we could.
You celebrate Christmas, and then it's kind of back to focusing on this baby. What was your next step?
So when they sent us home from the hospital that night, they made an appointment with a high-risk doctor over at UAMS for some ultrasounds. And they did those ultrasounds, and we went to visit with our OBGYN after that. And she had not gotten the test results at that point, so we still didn't know anything. And she ran some more tests. They were just I feel like there were so many tests over a couple of weeks. And then eventually we ended back at the high-risk doctor's office where we met with a genetic counselor, actually via telemedicine. She was in Alaska, and we talked to her.
Okay, and what did you learn during that visit?
I just thought that there were just going to be some little minor things that we needed to tweak, or that they were going to tell me that Ellie wasn't going to make it. And when the nice woman came over on the computer screen, and she started talking to me about Down syndrome, and I thought, I didn't know that this was a possibility. I didn't know this was in the realm of possibility for us. And Ben had actually he wasn't able to come to that appointment with us. He had something that came up at work, and he couldn't be there, so I was there by myself. And the genetic counselor was wonderful. She said, listen, it seems like you're probably not ready to hear all of this information. Let me give you my cell phone number. Why don't you call me back tonight when you're at home with your husband? And so I kind of had a little bit of time to process that. The appointment was very surreal because I was thinking, all of these people here know, and I had no idea, and I'm here all by myself, and you're in a room with all of these other pregnant women. And so you see them and you just think, gosh, are they having the same kind of troubles I'm having? Or I don't know. It was a lot of emotions. I was sad, and I was scared, and I was jealous. There was a lot there.
So that was the first time through telemedicine, the person wasn't even in the room, that you heard that Ellie might have Down syndrome, or was it confirmed at that point?
It was not confirmed at that point. She wanted me to do some further testing, and we talked about amnio and the other different kind of tests, and we landed on a blood test. And she said if it comes back and it's a certain percentage positive, it's a certain percentage that it's likely that she will have Down syndrome, then I wouldn't recommend doing anything further. And so I just had the simple blood test done, and it came back, and the test results said that she had a greater than 80% chance of having Down syndrome. And that, coupled with the heart defects that they saw on the ultrasound, confirmed to them in their minds that she would have Down syndrome.
So after you left that visit, again, what were your thoughts, and who did you call next about what plan of action you were going to take?
So the first person I called, I rode down in the elevator with another woman who was pregnant, who had not been in that same office with me. And I just thought, I want to know what's going on with her baby. And in my mind, I had imagined that she had a healthy baby, and I thought, I want her baby, not my sick baby, which is a terrible thing to say. But in that moment, you don't know what you're going to do. So I got out to the car and I called my husband, and he said he's been so supportive through all of this. He has had such a good outlook. He said, well, it's going to be fine. We'll figure it out. We figure everything out. It's going to be fine. So after that appointment, they made an appointment here at Children's for an echocardiogram for the baby, which is incredible that they can even do that. I don't know how they can see on a little tiny baby that's inside of me what their heart function is like, but they can do that. So that was my first interaction with the people here at Children's.
And how did that visit go? What were because I'm sure, again, you had mixed emotions coming here and then meeting with the team. How did that visit go? I knew what the test results were, and I knew what the ultrasound said, but there was still this part of me that just thought a greater than 80% chance. There's still some chance there that this isn't going to be the life. This isn't what we're going to have to deal with. So when I came here to Children's, I met with Dr. Bordemeyer was the first person that we met, and
there was a nurse here named Jenna who is fantastic there on the CV unit. And they did the ultrasound and answered all of our questions. It wasn't like ultrasounds I've had before where you can't really ask a lot of questions. They don't give you a lot of answers at those appointments. They took the time to show us on the screen what was going on real time while they were conducting the ultrasound. They just made us feel like this is a family. We'd now joined a new family at Children's Hospital, and they were going to take care of it. And the second appointment, I think I had 3 appointments here before Ellie was born. In the second appointment, I had gotten some results back, and Jenna was in the room, and I said, I got these results back. Do you want to take a look at them? And I handed her my phone. I handed her my MyChart on my phone, and she was reading through them because they had not shown up on her end yet. And I said, what do you think about the Down syndrome diagnosis? And she said, she's gonna have Down. She was like, she's gonna have Down syndrome. And the way that she said it was not, it was just a compassionate. I can't even describe how she said it. It was very compassionate that she just wanted me to be ready.
And so how did that change your perspective of what the second pregnancy was going to be like?
How did that change the perspective? I didn't know anything about Down syndrome. I didn't know anybody with Down syndrome. I had, in my mind, I was so naive. I thought, well, nobody in my family has Down syndrome. Surely Ellie's not going to have Down syndrome. So I started researching. I Googled and Googled and Googled everything about Down syndrome, everything about these heart defects, and what our life was going to be like. I spent so much time just doing research and asking questions. Every time I would come to a doctor's appointment, any doctor's appointment, I would have a list of questions to ask about what life was going to be like for us moving forward.
And what heart defects did they find exactly during that ultrasound?
So she had a coarctation of her aorta, and then she also had a complete AV canal defect. So there were 2 defects there that needed to be repaired. The coarctation was one that was an immediate threat, I guess. She'd need surgery on that pretty quickly after she was born. And then the complete AV canal defect, they wanted her to grow as much as possible before they had to go in and do that one.
The second pregnancy, again, has been so much different than your first. So you've gotten news of Down syndrome and then heart defects. And then you knew pretty soon afterwards that when Ellie was born that she would need surgery.
Yes.
So we kind of fast forwarded a little bit. So take us back to the day Ellie was born and just kind of that experience and how different that was compared to your first.
Well, to pull it back even further, once we found out about the heart defects, everybody went into action. Children's Hospital, Baptist Hospital, UAMS, everybody who was following me kind of came together, and they developed a plan on what was going to happen when she was born. So the day she was born, we went in, she was scheduled. We went in and had her in the morning. We were in the operating room, and there were so many people in there. I don't know if you had a C-section with any of your kids, but there's usually not that many people there. There were people lining the entire room, and they were all standing there with their hands behind their backs, real solemn faces. Even through their masks, I could tell their eyes were just real solemn, and everybody was there with a specific job to do. There was somebody there, to deal with lungs. There was somebody neonatal. There were anybody that needed to be there was there. And then also Angel 1 was there ready to take her. And we actually were, I don't want to say that part, just skip that part. So there was a whole room full of people ready to go. And when she was born, I just assumed, and we had been told to not expect a lot when she was born. When Jack was born, he was crying. It was exciting. Everybody was really happy. When Ellie was born, they told us just to kind of be prepared that she may not be breathing. She may be blue. There may be they may need to do a little bit of work to her to get her going. And when my OBGYN pulled her out, she was screaming. And I was laying on the table, and I looked up at the anesthesiologist who was standing over me, and I said, "Whose baby is that?" And he said, "That's your baby." "What do you mean, whose baby is that?" "That's your baby." And I couldn't believe that she was crying. She was, and at that moment we thought, okay, game on, let's go. We can do this.
And now, did you get to see Ellie right away, or what happened next?
My doctor said, as she was getting ready to pull Ellie out, she said, "Listen, I'm going to hold her up and I'm going to show her to her, but this may be your only chance." And so we were ready, and she held her up and showed her to us. She also had really dark hair, which was strange because my son had white hair when he was born. And my OBGYN handed her off, and they did a little bit of work to her, and then a couple of minutes later, they came back by me again. They were headed out to go take her, I don't know, to the nursery, I guess, to meet Angel 1. And the nurse stopped one more time on her way out, and we got one photo. The anesthesiologist took a picture for us of when we got to see her.
So after that, when was the next time you got to see Ellie?
They told us actually that she'd go straight to Children's, and that was going to be it. But I don't know what happened back there in the back, what kind of magic they did. But Angel 1 actually came upstairs and brought her to us one more time before they left in her little, the little transport box that they take the babies in the ambulance in. So we got to spend a couple of minutes with her before they took her to Children's. And then after that, it was 3 days before I got to see her again.
What were those 3 days like for you as a new mom?
Yeah. Again, I have this experience with Jack, and I knew what that was like. It was so perfect. And this was so different. I was the only mom on the unit there without a baby that had just given birth. So I was there with all the other, I could hear the babies crying at night, and I didn't have one. It was just a different, surreal experience. There's so much after you have a baby that happens to your brain and your body, I feel like. So it's all kind of a little bit of a cloud. But my husband was at Children's as soon as Ellie left. He left with her. And so he would send me videos and pictures and let me know, how things were going over here. So I wasn't completely detached from it, but it was hard not being with her.
So after 3 days, you got to see her, and then I know there was a surgery soon after that as well. So did things happen pretty fast, or?
They did. We got here. Well, Ben got me out of the hospital and brought me straight over here, and the nurses at Children's are incredible. I don't know how they knew that. Maybe they saw me coming. I don't really know. But as soon as I walked in the room, they had a space cleared for me to hold her for the first time.
And what was that like?
It was pretty incredible. She looked up at me. And and she looked at me like, "Oh, you're here. I've been looking for you for days. Where have you been?" That was really cool.
I'm sure that was a really emotional moment, clearly, for you and your family. So 3 days old, and then she had to have surgery on the 4th day?
No, she had surgery on the 6th day. Yeah. So we were with her for a few days, and she was in ICU at that point. She was under a lot of care and supervision, and yeah, they took her on the 6th and did her first surgery. So she got her first zipper scar on the 6th day.
What is a zipper scar?
A zipper scar, I guess, is a rite of passage for the CV kids. It's a scar on your sternum where they've cut you open.
And how did that surgery go? And what was the care team like here at Arkansas Children's?
That surgery went great. They went in and did the coarctation repair and put in a PA band to the PA band is a band that hooks on the pulmonary artery to kind of slow some flow of blood that could damage things before they could do the second surgery, the complete repair. So they were able to, typically if she needed the PA band, but typically if they weren't going in already, they wouldn't have done that. But since they were already in, they were able to do a little bit of extra to extend the amount of time before she had to have that second open heart surgery. The care team, I don't even know. I mean, there are no words to describe how wonderful the care team is here. They kept us informed during the whole surgery. We were still relatively new to the family, I guess, but they made us feel like we were a part of it.
You mentioned that she had to have 2 surgeries. When was the second surgery?
The second surgery, we were here when she was born. We were here for about 9 weeks. She learned she had the first surgery. She learned how to eat. We ended up putting a G tube in before we left during those 9 weeks. We learned about Ellie and how to take care of her. And then we went home for about a month and a half and came back. She was between 3 and 4 months old when she had the second surgery.
So talking about home, Jack is at home. How is he doing through all this, and how do you explain what's happening to a then 2-year-old?
Yeah, that's hard. That's a good question. If anybody knows the answer, let me know. Jack did great. We enlisted the help of grandparents. They kind of had a rotation. They would come into town and stay for a week or so, and then the next set of grandparents would come in and stay for another week. And they did this for months. I mean, they did this for a really long time. And they were able to help us keep Jack occupied, and we also knew that he was taken care of. They kept his routine the same. He went to bed at the same time, went to school on days when he was supposed to. And so everything was kind of normal for him. Ben and I made sure that one of us was home every night. At least one of us was home every night to put him down for bed and do bedtime routine like we had done before. He did not actually get to meet his sister until, I guess she was about 7 weeks old when he met her the first time. So he knew that he had a sister. He'd seen pictures and videos, but he didn't really understand what that meant. But when he first got to meet her, he was pretty excited because Children's is a pretty fun place for kids. You know, when they're walking in the front door, he got to where we all had to walk the little river path in to go see her and, you know, look at the constellation stars at the elevators there and walk on down the hall.
So when you're 2, you don't have any idea the heavy things that are going on inside the hospital. So he saw this as a fun place.
Yeah, he got to meet his sister here.
Neat.
And he got to go to the cafeteria, and he got to ride in the wagons. And the security guards at the front, they gave him a sticker every time he came in, and all of the nurses they knew, you know, they had taken the time to get to know our family, so they knew Jack and knew things that he liked.
So when it came time to leave, like you said, after the second surgery, they prepared you as much as they could to care for Ellie at home. What did they do, and how did you, when you left Arkansas Children's after being here for so long, how did you feel leaving with Ellie, knowing that you would be her full support system?
That's a crazy. I remember walking down the hallway. Ben was carrying her in her little carrier that clicks in the car seat and pulling her little oxygen tank behind him. And he was swinging his arms, you know, just really excited. And I was walking behind him, pulling the wagon with all of our stuff. And I just thought, she's going to go outside for the first time. She's never been outside. She doesn't know what the sunshine feels like. It was just so much hope and joy and excitement in that moment. But then we got home, and then you're like, oh gosh, wait a minute. Whoa, what are we doing here? We can't be trusted with this child. No, Children's did a really good job of getting us prepared to leave. We learned about how to give her medicines that she takes every day. We learned about we learned about how to do things, but we also learned about why it's important to do those things. So that helps us be able to see if there are things that we need to be paying attention to. If she looks a little funny or if her color's a little off, we kind of have it's a clue for us to start watching for other things in case she starts, going down the wrong path and we need to bring her back. There's also a program here where, and I don't know the time frame, but it was about 48 hours before we left where they turn off all of the monitors in the room, and we room in with her. And we had been here for weeks and weeks and weeks living with her anyway, but we always had a nurse. If something was going wrong on the monitor, if we were worried about something, you just call the nurse and they come in and help us. But they turn the monitors off about 48 hours before you leave, and you have to do it on your own without any help. I say that. I mean, that someone is watching the monitors if something's really going wrong. But the idea is that we pretend like we're at home, and we see just how comfortable we are, and then the doctors and nurses also get to see how comfortable we are with Ellie.
What was that like? What were those 48 hours like?
At nighttime, I think that's the scariest time because you're so tired and you just want to sleep, but you're so worried about what's going to happen overnight. There kind of came a point for Ben and I, and it was back, I believe it was right around her first surgery where we just said, for our sake and our family's sake, we can't make everything about Ellie. Ellie is a part of our family, but she deserves to be a part of it and not the central focus, just like Jack deserves to be a part of it. So we kind of just had to say, this is what's going to happen is going to happen, and we just have to trust that everything's going to be okay. We're going to do everything we can to make things as perfect as we can, and we just kind of have to let everything go and relax and live our lives. And that was kind of how it was those first 48 hours. We just said, okay, we're going to go to bed and we're just going to trust that all of this is going to be okay. And we got up and checked on her through the night like you would do. But we all have to learn how to do this without it consuming everything.
So you made it through the 48 hours, and then you go home and you start living your life and your new normal. How is Ellie doing now? And just talk about some of the milestones and her personality.
Ellie's doing great. We had a kind of a rough cold and flu season this year. We were back at Children's a lot for that, but the team, everybody was great, and she did fine. She needed a little bit of extra help to get through some of those illnesses. But right now she's doing really, really good. She's learned how to crawl, and so she is all over the house. Yesterday I was unloading groceries, and I looked out of the kitchen, and she was sitting at the front door, looking out the front glass door, just waving at, I don't know, butterflies. I don't know what she was waving at out there. She's so happy and such a joy. She just is. She's game. I keep describing her that way. She wants to be a part of everything. She wants to learn. She wants to participate. And we're just really excited to see where she goes from here. This, I feel like the first year the kids just grow so much, and or after their first year, kids just grow so much, and I'm excited to see what she does from year 1 to year 2.
And she's having fun with her big brother?
Oh, yeah. She tickles him, which is hilarious.
That's so sweet. And I'm sure Jack is glad to just have everybody home and back to his normal routine. Just in closing, Heather, if you could just talk about maybe just one highlight or one thing that you remember that made your experience here at Arkansas Children's different.
I think from the very moment that we started going to the CV clinic, from those first echo appointments, we were just part of her team. I don't look as, it's Jack has his mom and his dad, and he's got his extended family, and those people are the people who look out for him. Ellie has this team of people, and Ben and I and Jack, we're all just part of the team. Children's Hospital has really shown us that, we all come together and we work, and we get her to where she can elevate and do things on her own and become her own independent person. We just need to stand back and just kind of just watch. Ellie's going to show us where she's going and what she's doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your story with Ellie. I'm looking forward to meeting her. She sounds like a fun little lady. So thank you for your time this morning and for sharing your story.
Thank you.
That was a special story to be part of and to hear. I definitely needed a Kleenex during that, just hearing about Heather and her journey, Ellie's journey, and the first time that Ellie got to hear her voice was a real emotional story. It's neat to hear about Ellie's extended family now, that they see Arkansas Children's as not just a hospital anymore, that it's part of Ellie's family and will always be. So this was a special interview and a neat story to be part of today. Thank you for listening to the Live, Learn, and Play podcast. We'll be back next time sharing more stories about the patients, families, and team members at Arkansas Children's.